Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's a beautiful morning from here in Lagos. I am Kayode Okikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makine. Good morning and welcome.
And from Abuja, good morning. I'm Maukwe Ogun-Yusuf.
Well, the country has got to brace itself because the third mainland bridge, the government has announced that they will shut it for maintenance for 6 months, 3 months each for those lanes. So when one of these lanes, if it's over and done with, and then they'll move over to the other. Well, it is huge because we know that, you know how it is, not just in this state, but in the country. When there's a little snag on the roads, boy, the tailback, it's usually huge because of the nature, and then it's rainy season. So add that to that. And then sometimes for those in Lagos, that particular Lagos-Ibadan expressway, when, you know, there's a snag as well, you always, most cases, hear the feedback. Look, much as they always have to carry on maintenance work on these roads, no doubt about that. But we also do know other climes carry out maintenance on their roads, and I'm not sure they apply the same method that we are applying, shutting it for 6 months. Look, we know the economy is struggling. Time is money. Time is spent, they say. So if we're going to spend that amount of time on the roads, well, you know, it's definitely going to affect a number of things. So one wonders. I know in some states, previously, they do some of this work at night. It may cost a little more because you need to provide, security and the required confidence for the construction companies to do what they have to do. But now, it's going to be closed for 6 months. So one wonders, if it was done, perhaps at night, you would have saved a lot of, man hours that would have been lost as a result of that. But at the moment, that is what they're grappling with. We don't know if they're going to change their minds about all of this, but gosh, it's huge.
You know, I'm counting the months, and apparently it won't be until January that the third Mainland Bridge will be
till the end of the year, next year.
And even beyond, and that's huge. Wow. But, you know, so we'll try to wait. There's obviously a need to fix it. I mean, there was that integrity test done in 2018. I think it was in August 2018. And, you know, it took a while to get the result of that test. So obviously, I mean, you saw the pictures. Obviously, the bridge needs some work. Almost 12 kilometers, long stretch. I mean, it's not a little thing. In fact, it's one of the longest on this continent, apparently. But, you know, a lot of people are asking, why wasn't this done during that lockdown, you know? I mean, that was what a lot of people asked. I mean, 3 months or thereabouts, you could have just saved us half of that time, and then you can do the rest during the 3 months. But you know these things. There's always the talk about, you know what? I'm not even going to speak for the government, but these are some of the issues that have been put out there by people.
The government.
Yeah, because you understand their surprise and shock. This is like the major nerve center. And you said it, that the nation needs to brace up, which is instructive. Not just Lagos, the nation actually.
Don't forget, there are more taxes now.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. So this is a big deal. It's not just for Lagos, it's the whole nation, because Lagos is the economic capital of Nigeria. 6 months, I really don't look forward to it. Maybe this is a time for people to perfect that remote working angle. Well, COVID-19 gave us an opportunity, but this is going to pose a lot of challenge for us. And I'd like to see the government sit down with, businesses, people, and say, this is how we can work things out. Because, I mean, I can't imagine how much will be lost as a result of that closure.
I just wonder, would it help if the authorities had said, look, we know that the country and those who use that road will be miffed about this because it's going to affect all of us. These are the options that we had, and this is why we chose this option, because we thought this is the best option. Yeah. Maybe it may help assuage all of those naysayers who might have thought, what are the options available? But if people don't have this kind of information, they will always think or say what they thought would have been best, I reckon.
Which goes back to what we've often said about communication. When people don't know what is happening, they're at liberty to choose whatever they believe is happening, conjure information and all of that. So this is going to be done for 6 months. Wow. I remember those 3-day tests, the 3-day integrity test.
Right?
Just merely thinking about it then. But, factor in a number of facts, which is, I can't even begin to imagine it now. So from where is it going to be? Is it from the Oworonshoki end or from the Ojota end? That's another thing. So if it happens to be from the Oworonshoki
Ojota end is not completed yet. So do
No, I'm
something
coming
about that.
somewhere, bro. So if it so happens that it's from the Oworonshoki end, calculate what's going to happen between the Oworonshoki end and Anthony end, because that one is still under construction. It's not yet fully completed. That one is there for us to contend with. If this is going to happen from what we are hearing from this month, maybe it's 24th or thereabout of this month, does that mean that that road would have been completed before then? Remember that conversation started about Akpakpa to Oworonshoki. That one is still on. How far with that until now? That conversation is there. And there are many roads that are under repairs in Lagos. Remember, this is the third mainland bridge, suggesting that there is a first mainland bridge and a second mainland bridge. How strong are those now to contend with the issues that this one is going to have? Because the first mainland bridge itself is not particularly smooth right now. The second mainland bridge,
work at some point.
even though yes, they did some work, they along the Ido, Ijora, and all of that. So those conversations, government needs to educate people about it, because the panic is not going to be.
Magu doesn't need to worry too much
Honestly,
about
imagine the
this
smile on
because
her
Right
face
now,
right
she's
now.
like, I'm glad I moved.
just leave your plan till next year.
Isn't that right,
Much
Mark?
later next year. Don't worry about this.
Well, I had absolutely no plans to come to Lagos, at least before the end of this year, not with all that is going on right now, and well, even also in my own personal life. But, I think that sometimes the panic alone, scares us more than the actuality of what actually happens at the end of the day. We dreaded the repair of the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, or did I say the Lagos? Yeah, that particular expressway that leads immediately out of Lagos, that Ojota axis, outside towards Bega and all of that area. We dreaded it. We thought, oh my God, this was never going to end. And yes, indeed, it was a nightmare while it lasted, but we survived it. So this, is repair work that needs to be done. I think what we need to imagine is if it's not done and we leave it like that, what could happen? And then will we blame ourselves as a result of it? The pains that we will go through now, what would it be like if we don't go through the pains and, get things sorted and, fix it in such a way that we know that the integrity of this bridge is not in doubt? What will be the consequences of that? So I think that sometimes when we weigh the pains that we'll go through for something, let us also look at the outcomes. I'm not going to deny the fact that, it's going to be painful. That is not in any doubt. Every time that the third mainland bridge has had to be shut down, it's been very painful. It's been harrowing for the people of Lagos. I think that, though, in some ways, I think we should just look at this year as a year of pain to help us come out on the other side, looking at things more beautifully. Because I imagine that if this is not done this year and, the economy has suffered a great deal already as a result of the fact that we've had to shut down because of the pandemic, and then, children have not gone to school. I think a lot of people are just saying, let us just, brave this year. If we can brave it and, we come out in 2021, hopefully things will be better. And so we lean on hope a great deal, against next year. And I want to think that one of the things that we need to fix, this is an opportunity for us to fix as much as we can while we wait this year out. I think that is the way I see this year already. So let's go through the pains. And of course, more explanation is needed. For instance, I completely agree with Kayode. Why didn't we think about this when there was a lockdown? Why, but some people will still argue that, do you want to go and risk other people's lives, when we're not sure of the kind of virus that we're facing and the potentials? Will we go and, tell other people's fathers and mothers to be out on the road working when we're not sure of the circumstances under which they'll be working? There are questions around there. And then when you now think of the fact that children are still not, the economy is not fully open just yet. Flights are just about to start coming in and, the traffic in Lagos, of course, is going to increase. But children, for instance, are not back in school, at least not physical school. So that might still temper down the traffic a little. And we should make use of this time that we have. There might still be arguments around there. I don't know. But let us wait and see if the economy will still be able to take this toll. We have come this far. We have suffered quite a bit. I think that, this particular pain, we can endure a bit more to ensure that we are in safe hands when eventually we decide to continue to use the third mainland bridge. Gentlemen.
Well, except that the government's 7.5% tax increase is not brave. They're not backing down on that. They're trying to recover all that has been lost from stamp duty. So it's still going to be huge on the people. So the taxes, they're not going on it. They're not taking a break on those particular ones because they tell us they need money. But they just want that. Oh, by the way, guys, don't forget, NCDC, look at those figures now. They've added Cross River State to that. 5 of those cases. Remember when we did look at that matter yesterday? The NMA in the state were up in arms about some of those results that they had talked about. So now, if you look at that, the NCDC has added 5 cases, additionally to the cases that have been released concerning the COVID-19.
So as it stands now, all states in the country have recorded, COVID-19 cases. Yes, the NCDC boss had said, well, no state is without cases, but this is official right now. And, I don't want it to look like as though, people were trying to push Cross River into having cases, by all means. But this is something we need to really know about. If you know about it, if you test it, if you have data, then you can follow through. We don't want to start hearing about mysterious deaths and what have you in Cross River. So Cross River has recorded 5 cases.
So at the moment, both Kogi and Cross River states have got 5 cases each for COVID-19.
And not to also forget that some of these states in Nigeria do not have any active case at this time, but then at least that's something gratifying. Just underscores the fact that this thing is real, and we shouldn't just let down our guards. Malkwe?
Well, I don't know if this is as a result of the threat of the NMA, but whatever talking was done behind this thing to eventually get those figures there, no problem. I mean, I don't think anyone is particularly glad to see that there are cases. But as the NCDC chair or DG has stressed several times, let it not be because we're not looking hard enough and people are still dying out of this pandemic. Let it be that it is because they truly did not exist. I had very strong doubts about the sort of lockdown that was imposed in Cross River because I did know people who traveled from one state to another, especially through Cross River. There were governors who alleged, the Bauchi State governor, for instance, did allege that people came from Cross River to his state and they were COVID-19 positive. Yet some governors were denying that their lockdown was iron cast. There was no lockdown that was iron cast anywhere in this country, especially when it comes to interstate. So for the Cross River State to have gone on pretending as they did that, they were COVID-19 free, a lot of people had very strong doubts in terms of how they had handled that. Kogi is another case. We still do not know what the status of the state is in terms of their response to the pandemic, especially when the governor still maintains a very strong stance that he doesn't believe that there is any such thing as a COVID-19 virus. So I still have my my own doubts as to how these 2 states in particular are handling it when they come in contact with it. We have said it's not a death sentence. People do not need to die from it. In fact, a lot of people will survive. So I do not know why it's so difficult for them to accept that, okay, well, this is a reality. Your approach to handling it might be different. I mean, eventually we had to ease lockdowns. We found out that lockdowns without testing made no sense. So let us, I don't know, let us confront this thing head on. Let us deal with it and move on with our lives. Let it not be that, when the entire country is done, then some states are still dragging the entire country back as a result of their denial or their refusal to actually acknowledge what was happening in the first place. Gentlemen.
Yeah, so let's go right ahead into what the dailies are focusing on this morning. And we'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. The big lead, EFCC's Magu, DSS in arrest interrogation drama. Magu blocked in traffic, giving invitation to appear before panel. We didn't arrest him, DSS. Panel grills Magu at presidential villa over alleged infractions. So that is the big one featuring today on the daily. And then you can see Edo Gubo poll campaign cancelled on the front page there. And they cut off whose nose is popping into that picture just right at the side there. But then you see this at the top of above this list story. Ohaneze Ndibo are co-owners not leaving Nigeria for anybody. And then rising inflation threatens FG's 5.1 trillion naira revenue target. And then I think it's time for more robust economic policies to open up the economy, let the private sector, do some things.
if you're going to get money from the private sector, let the business environment be thriving enough, be economically viable enough for them to be able to produce enough to generate the taxes.
And there's so much templates that the businesses, the economic summit groups, several of them have suggested those templates. We should just embrace it. Face it. Court remands Enugu couple over abuse of 10-year-old girl. Oh, the image is horrific. You may not want to see that. Don't forget the back page. Mikel, set to return to English football. Ajax regret not signing him. Don't cry, but spill to make move on, guys. But today, Osimhen decides on 80 million euro Napoli move today. It will be a big day for him for Nigerian football. I reckon. Don't bother. It's big money.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune for you. The big
you can't
story.
go back to play football.
You don't
Just stay with
understand.
your salary.
Sad.
Well,
Sad.
let's show you what's on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. This one focuses on Magu and, the whole EFCC, DSS back and forth. But, well, here's what we have. Magu faces probe panel at Aso Villa. Panel grills him over activities as EFCC chairman. This term grill. Well, you see how he was served summons while in traffic. That's a scene from movies, you might say, but you find more details on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. And right under that, that big story, you see 2 pictures. One shows the Ondo State governor while briefing the media after he was confirmed negative for COVID-19 just yesterday. And right next to that is Oyo State. Well, schools have reopened, safe reopening schools. Students in graduating classes, and apparently, it seemed as though, it was quite. They adhered to the guidelines to a large extent. And
That's in the city center.
Well, yeah.
How about the villages?
Big questions right
yeah.
there. But, the places we visited, you could see the masks. And, what was quite tricky for me was using the thermometer gun. So people that were using it, some of them stayed like 2 meters away. And no, you should get close, 6 inches or 15 centimeters at least. What are you measuring if you're far away from the person? But obviously, you'd understand that safety is key for these people. So there you have it. We'll monitor definitely to see the trend in Oyo State, because that would mean a lot in terms of data. And right under that, you see FG says WAEC exams begin August 4th. If you've not been reading, now's the time to go back to your studies and books, because it's less than a month from now. And there are riders. High COVID-19 infection rate among officials will harm governance. This comes from the PTF. 25 Nigerians sue China. Guess what? Demand $200 billion. In case you're wondering why, or more details in the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Virus may not have originated from China, says Oxford University. Well, it's still on that controversy about the source of COVID-19.
It'll never go away anyway.
Definitely. And let me just bring you this one. Edoguba, campaigns have started officially. That's coming from INEC. But I recall the NCDC also saying they can conduct their rallies and what have you online. So how will that work? They have to send links.
Online?
They have to send links.
Who's going to do that?
But obviously, this is something we should explore.
That would be e-rally.
Yeah.
E-campaign.
Yeah. And, this will cut down a lot of costs.
Some event companies might fold up.
Yeah,
that's not good for the
both
economy.
the costs on paper and the costs of paper. And I think this is a good way
That's
forward.
a life blow of those politicians.
Oh,
I'm telling you.
Absolutely. But
How are they going to scream?
big question. But you're not a politician, so it shouldn't be a concern for you, right?
Will there be a dance?
We'll leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
The Daily Trust newspaper also has that Magu story on the front page. Salami's panel quizzes Magu, may recommend sack. Salami's panel quizzes Magu, may recommend sack. You were talking about that word, grill. Well, this is quiz. Hope you like that one. How DSS picked EFCC chair. He was invited, not arrested. Presidency, Malami keeps mum. AGF's memo, part of Villa Power Play, according to the Anti-Corruption Committee. Find the story on page 5. Right under that picture you see of Oshodi. 7 billion naira debt. FG offers broadcast stations 60% relief. I think I like the sound of that. The story is on page 3.
IBAN says, yeah, they like it, but they need to extend the deadline.
Well,
that's what IBAN says.
You heard? Right under that major headline, what the The nameplate, Buhari's 774,000 job scheme remains suspended. It's according to the Senate. Flight resumption, last cabin row for passengers isolation. That one is on page 45. And solar-powered kiosks produced for farmers, agripreneurs in Lagos. Find that story on page 7. Let's leave it there for the Daily Trust.
Let's quickly look at leadership for you this morning. Their lead story, COVID-19, Nigeria, 72 others risk stock out of HIV drugs. So lots of movements going on right now. It looks like those who are treating other diseases could have trouble getting their drugs. Yeah, you see there, Nigeria, 72 others, we're not the only ones, risk stock out of HIV drugs. Pandemic hampering access to antiretroviral, that's according to WHO, says 2020 global health targets won't be met. COVID-19 airborne, scientists insist. I recall that there was a big controversy around whether it was airborne or not. Some people said it was just droplets. All you have to do is come in contact with the droplets. But now, scientists say it is airborne, so you have to be careful. Growing cases among VIPs unsettles federal government. Warns against mistakes of 1918 pandemic. Lagos, Abuja, Kano airports begin operations tomorrow. Akeredolu tests negative. See, the death sentence. You can get it, but you'll survive it if you take the necessary precautions. Looking just beneath the nameplate there, federal government grants broadcast stations 60% debt forgiveness. That is also there, just right underneath the nameplate. WAEC exams commence August 4. I already highlighted that. If you're not reading, you're on your own. Looking at the corner there, DSS denies arrest Magu. Recruitment exercise for 774,000 jobs remains suspended. That's according to that one. Says only NCE can implement process. Well, let's find who suffers. Federal governorship, APC, PDP kick-off campaign with verbal fireworks. Is this all what we see? Looking at the bottom, a number of stories for you there, which we will leave to do yourself. Let's leave it there.
Okay, then, well, the next one is The Guardian here today. CBN bows to pressure. The values Naira again. But then the writer, the first of which reads, timing coincidental, nothing to do with IMF, World Bank. Economists advocate currency lifestyle audit. What's that mean? Lifestyle audit. Well, Moalu, Sanusi, others disagree on exchange rates unification. And then right beneath that, you could see the picture. Confusion over alleged arrest of EFCC boss Magu. Presidential panel grills acting chairman. DSS, anti-graft body, dismiss rumored detention. Journalists barred from Aso Rock probe venue. Don't jeopardize anti-corruption fight. CSO warns government agencies. So that's what you see right there. And don't forget, you can take a look at some of the sports stories. But that's The Guardian today. Daily Times is next.
Okay, so let's bring you the front page of the Daily Times this morning and quickly run through it. Oh, there you go. Reps move to block $30 billion yearly revenue leakages. Whew, $30 billion. Oh, that's huge. Goodness me. But we'll see how that plays out because we hear this from time to time. And a couple of other stories. PDP, Ganduje trade words over Edo Treasury, just right under the big picture of the acting chairman of the EFCC. You know, politics, it's building up and it's quite intriguing. Panel grills Magu into wee hours on alleged corruption. And, well, FG announces date for WAEC exams amid coronavirus. We'll leave it there for the Daily Times.
All right, so that's a new look at Daily Times, by the way. It was confusing. People didn't know if it was the right one,
The
right?
New York Times or the Daily Times?
Okay, so there you go. That's it today with a look at some of the dailies. We're back in a moment. Don't go away. All right, welcome back. Well, while that goes on, don't forget, today we'll be bringing you the result of this poll, which we put out, that you just go out there and let us know what you think. So those are the amount of people who have already indicated what their thought is about that. Don't forget, schools, states are taking their decisions based on certain reasons. Who knows if your consideration may be one of those reasons that they will rely on to go ahead and open the schools. So we'll wait for you. We'll announce the results today. So you still have a little more time to do that. All right.
Plus votes already.
Yeah. So we'll see how that happens before the day runs out, before this program ends, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So right now, let's just go right on to what we've got for you next. It's the developments that you may have seen reported in all the dailies here today, the scenario between the chairman, the acting chairman of the EFCC and some other agencies. We've got Mr. Dennis Amagre, former deputy director with the DSS, joining us here in the studios. And then we also have Aviation Richard, who is executive director of Corruption Observatory, also joining us via Zoom this morning. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on this morning. Let me start from the studios here.
Yeah, good morning.
Haven't seen the way this played out. When the news broke, they thought that security agencies, they initially thought it was DSS. They thought it was an arrest because when they say you are invited, in some cases when they invite you, you don't come back. So the definition of invitation.
Or you are invited by force.
No, sometimes it's willing. They just tell you, please, you're invited. Then when you come in, the definition of invitation by security agencies is different from the regular English.
Yes.
Because you don't leave that premises, sometimes 24 hours, sometimes longer. So where people right to have thought, wait a minute, this is an arrest. Okay, so eventually when that then happened, DSS came up with a statement saying, look, well, we didn't arrest him. So now we understand he had to face a panel. We don't even know if he's out yet from all of those. So what do you make of all this play now?
It's power play.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's power play, and I think people were having a nostalgia of what happened 2 years ago when I think the EFCC sent some of their people to go and search a former DG's house, residence. And when this happened, it was actually, they saw people in plain clothes and they believed it was DSS. And actually, those were FCID people, you know, and actually sent by Magu's former boss, who is Lamode. You know, he's now the
in charge of FCID.
AIG in charge of FCID. So they jumped into the media to give out that news. I think Sahara reporters, you know. I think they have to be checking on this news before they jump out to beat everybody that I broke it, you know. So I think that was what happened.
So on the one hand, it's power play. On the other hand, the reportage.
Yeah, it's fine because when you listen to the spokesman of the EFCC, his first report was that I think they were arrested. Their boss was arrested. Then he later came back to say that he was not arrested. He was invited, you know. And all the same, it was not to the SSS. It was not the SS that was inviting or arresting. It was a panel that was sending for him to come and explain certain allegations that came out.
I want
But
to
the nature.
Yes, exactly. But let's open. Let Mr. Evie
No, just a minute before you get the apologies. But the nature of this, because it wasn't too clear at that time to newsmen what exactly happened.
Yes.
Even some officials of the commission didn't have all the details
They don't.
at the time.
They don't.
Because they said, look, it was a combination of some DSS and some policemen at that. So that's what made it a little tricky, wondering, look, why did they have to be given that invitation on the road, saying, no, this is more important than wherever or whatever you were going to do. So he then went to the villa, and journalists were barred from finding out what was going on at that point in time.
It was an investigative panel. And for one thing, I think Magu also has some blame on his own side because apparently he was operating as a law unto himself. You know, he must be reporting to somebody which he's not doing. You know, even in the United States, the FBI reports to the Department of Justice.
Oh, so in this case, the AGF.
Of course, and the AGF was the originator of the report, the allegations. You know, so when this thing came up, they know maybe he might not want to come or something. I don't know, but he was stopped on the way and then asked to. He wanted to go for another meeting. And they said, no, we have to go to this one first. And then they
That
have
means that decision was coming from a superior
Of course,
office
definitely.
to his.
Like I said, it was from the FCID. FCID. They went to invite him. And that's why the mistake came, whereby because they were plain clothesmen, many people thought it was the DSS.
All right, let's take on Mr. Ivy Riches now, Executive Director, Corruption Observatory. First of all, what do you make of all of these? On the one hand, well, you've also heard our guest here say it's some kind of power play. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I have no doubt that a lot of Nigerians may have been jolted by the seeming arrest of Magu. But so many other Nigerians would not be that surprised, judging from what's been going on for a while now. Magu, as the chairman of the EFCC, has done quite a lot of good work while in office, convicted some high-profile politicians, and an ardent expert in anti-fraud and anti-money control issues. Magu was team leader of the special finance unit of the Nigerian Police Force, promoted Chief Superintendent of Police in 2003, appointed chairman of EFCC in 2015. But in 2010, Magu had an altercation with the Police Service Commission, and he was warned because he was withholding some EFCC files. Curiously, the then Senate, 8th Senate, refused to confirm the appointment of Magu based on intelligence from the DSS. Some of that intelligence stated that Magu currently occupies a residence rented for 40 million at the rate of 20 million naira per annum, and was paid for by one retired Air Commodore Umar Mohammed, and not the EFCC, as would be expected. And this same residence was furnished at the cost of 43 million naira by the FCTA through a contract awarded to MES Africa Energy, curiously owned by this same Umar Mohammed. Magu is also said to undergo most of his official duties in private jets owned by this same retired Air Commodore. And in one of those trips to Maiduguri, both of them were in company of the MD of a bank that was complicit in the case of the loot of Alison Madueke. And again, the icing on the cake, no other less person than the AGF has also come out to say that Magu has diverted some of the recovered loot. Nigerians have been questioning a long time what's been happening to these loots and how they've been utilized thus far. And not only that, that he has also recklessly and fraudulently engaged in sale of seized assets. Well, the case of Magu had to be approached with a lot of caution. I'm an anti-corruption practitioner. A lot of caution, a lot of care. These are all at the realm of speculation. And a lot of people say it is power play. The word play is a power play. But for me, Magu is a close friend of the presidency, and so is Malami. So I think it's the good thing that a panel is finally, high-profile panel is finally put in place to unravel all of this and to see if there are any iota of truth.
When you say finally, were you expecting this way before now?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Imagine that Magu was appointed in 2015 and has not been confirmed. Okay, at that time, it was speculated that the then Senate wasn't in good rapport with the presidency. But now we have a Senate that is in good rapport with the presidency, and his name has not been submitted for confirmation, even though a number of high-profile appointees have been confirmed since the Senate came into power.
Having said that, then, what does this mean for? Because you say it's speculation, but you know, for some people, look, perception is reality. They just think that, look, this is their own reality. So what does this do to the entire the office of the commission, the approach to the fight against corruption? Does this in any way affect it whatsoever?
The anti-corruption function has to have an impeccable character. In fact, should undergo a lot of sting operations before being appointed and being confirmed. And if you confirm an appointee that has not passed those sting operations, it means that you are putting the country at risk. That is not in any way saying that Magu is guilty, mark you, because I know that if you go against people, people will certainly come against you. My point, however, is that this issue must be thoroughly scrutinized and the truth unraveled so that Nigerians would know exactly what is at play, if it is just power play or if there is truth that Magu is corrupt. See, Lamode had a near similar experience, so was Waziri. In faraway America, the head of the FBI has a similar experience. So, but in all of these issues, it's always proper to investigate and to find out that there is truth, or it was just power play and somebody was just trying to be mischievous somewhere.
All right, just hang on a minute. Now, Mr. Marco, the thing about this is, if they say it's power play, they're predicating it on the report. Those reports, well, which is the subject of this grilling by this presidential panel, so we may not be able to ascertain the veracity of some of those reports, but there was a certain report that was relied on, or upon which the then Senate didn't confirm him, and up to today, has anybody faulted that report, for instance? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I don't know if the panel actually investigated that report, because if they are going to speak to him, apparently I expect that they must have, because questions will come out from that report. How about this? And what do you know about this, right? So that will be there. But I think he has bigger problems, bigger problems in the sense that being the anti-corruption czar, so to say, there had been this problem of successfully prosecuting certain cases, high-profile cases, with him, because they find out that many high-profile or international profile cases are being lost in the court because of lack of evidence or improper investigation.
But that cannot be a wrongdoing on his part.
No, it will be, because if you are in charge of, before you go and arrest people, You should. You see what happened with Hush Puppy? Before they arrested him, it took them time, and then they arrested him, and within 24 hours he was in court. But here we are very good at parading suspects, media trials, all kinds of things that we do, you know. And these cases go to court. A lot of cases by the EFCC have been lost.
But
they go to court and they lose
would
the
you
case.
say? What would you say is responsible for that? Is it because the agencies, the investigating agencies, are not doing their job, or they do not just have access to enough information to prosecute?
Number one, they didn't do a diligent investigation before, and then take this case and give it to the Attorney General, because Minister of Justice is supposed to prosecute. See, they are supposed to prosecute.
Okay.
But these cases were not taken to the Ministry of Justice. And, any case that is above about 15 million naira should be taken down to the prosecutorial authority, which is not done. So these ones are being done within the EFCC, and sometimes when they go to court, they lose the cases, because there are sons ready to, end their living, and by going down there, they throw cases out.
Which leads me to the next question. So each of these agencies are directly under the presidency, the EFCC, the DSS, the Ministry of Justice. What's the problem?
Some of these, in fact, actually, when you look at the EFCC, you could even say that it's a department of the police, because it has all the heads of the EFCC have been policemen, okay? And, of course, supervisorily, they are under the Attorney General, because any case they have, even the DSS, if they have any case that they've investigated, they give it to the Attorney General to prosecute in court. So if you're not following that channel and going to the court by yourself, and when you lose cases, then you'll be responsible.
That's the problem. Sorry, Chimele. That's the problem. Each of these agencies work directly with the presidency. So from an intelligence perspective, what is the problem? Is it that they do not collaborate, or that they're having mutual suspicion?
Some of the agencies before now have been operating in silos, whereby they are all on their own, and then they report to the president and tell him, oh, I did this, it's not the other guy.
They've always done that, haven't they?
They've always done that, and this is not only for Nigeria. Even in the United States, they've done it. But you see, that's where the NSA comes in, where the National Security Advisor will serve as a clearinghouse to, get all these intelligence together so that they can work together.
But, some say that, look, he might have been grilled for 6 hours. A former president of the Court of Appeal heads that committee. You have the DIG of the police, you have the NSA, you have the DSS. So having all those personnel in that particular panel, in fact, some also say that there are about 24 allegations leveled against him. 22. Some of them, the reports, including that of the DSS, submitted in 2016 and some 2017. So it shows that there's something serious going in here. And when you're faced with this kind of scenario, what are the chances that you come out unscathed? Because some are already saying that this panel may recommend the sack.
Just like your other guest was saying, when you occupy a position like this, you have to have an impeccable integrity in dealing with things. Nigeria, we are having corrupt people all over the place, so sometimes you don't get very clean individuals. But when you are, look back at the EFCC itself. We've had people like Nuhu Ribadu, who was bribed, and he brought out the money and confronted the people who bribed him, And those are the kinds of things. Although, when you are fighting corruption, corruption will also fight back. But if your hands are not clean, it becomes a problem. So these are the nitty-gritty areas, the murky areas.
Mr. Richard, when I know you alluded to the point that, look, several other people have been submitted for screening to the Senate, and his name had not been part of those. Is that an indication that, wait a minute, there just might be something here? And do you see what happens at the end of this panel, whether or not he's free or they recommend the sack? You think that in the event that he eventually carries on, can it ever be business as usual?
If I heard you clearly, you're asking if he is reinstated, if that will be good enough for the system. And I say that it will be an embarrassment to the country if any slight confirmation of any of the allegations is proven to be correct. As I said earlier, the truth of the matter is that that desk needs a character that has an impeccable integrity. But Chamberlain, my major worry is not this investigation that is at play. My major worry is the fact that what the foundation of all of this is because of a system that are weak. You will imagine that Waziri had this problem, Lamode had this problem, myriads of Nigerians in public service are having this problem. That straight ahead tells you that these systems are not strong. And I have been very close to a high-profile committee of this government, and I've opened up to tell them that, look, this government is not fighting corruption the way that corruption should be fought. There is no harm in pursuing people who stole money and making them refund the money stolen and jailing them. But if that's all the government is going to do, you may have to jail about 3/4 of Nigerians. Because as we speak today, 8 out of 10 Nigerians would rather take a corrupt medium to achieve an objective than go through some little pain and to do what is really correct. That is at the value system.
So we'll sharply disagree with you on that one.
The value system of the people.
I'm not sure the veracity of that poll, if it's a poll actually. Okay, Mr. Richard, pardon me, I understand we need to go to break, but we'll come back to this in just a moment. Stay with us. You know, you can only have your say beyond what you just heard about what you think, whether or not students should get back to school. As parents, will you take them back to school? Right there, just go ahead and poll. Leave a comment afterwards, if you will. We'll appreciate that as well. So, but before the show ends, we hope to bring you the results and let you see how you have voted. But let's get on to this before we wind down. Still talking about the scenario, the drama, whatever adjective you use in describing what's playing itself out between the acting chairman of the EFCC and, well, do I say power blocks now? They say it's a power game. Okay. Kaide, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me just ask Mr. Makria. I don't know if we can simplify things a bit so we can, place this in the whole scheme of things. Seeing what has played out, I mean, yesterday and in previous weeks and years, apparently this dates back years ago. Would you say this is a blow to our fight against corruption, or is this a win for that fight? Or maybe the fight just landed a huge punch? Because you look at the way he was invited, the panel, especially when you know that the DSS is meant to be a part of the EFCC, or at least a representative of the DSS. So is this a blow to our fight against corruption, or that fight just landed a huge blow?
We can say that it doesn't tell good about us, especially internationally, that the head of our anti-corruption agency is also being investigated for corruption. So that's not a very good picture when you come to looking at it among Nigerians. But again, it also tells us that no matter who is sitting anywhere, they are the long hands of the law, or should I say, the accountability part of it must happen, whereby no matter who you are, you can be brought to question.
Really call this the long arm of the law? Is that what this is, really?
Of course, we don't know. They are still investigating the allegations. But at the end of the allegations, let us see what results are going to come out.
Right. Also, I'd like to take you up on that phrase that corruption is fighting back. I know you have said this doesn't look good, but is there a possibility that corruption is fighting back in this case? Is that remotely possible?
Corruption always fight backs. It always fight back because, some of these people that the EFCC is fighting are millionaires and billionaires. And that's why you have to be very diligent when you're investigating people like this. And that's why we've not succeeded. I remember very well where there was a press conference and Magu was asked, how about Hush Puppy? And then he was like, we're on it. We're on it. And this does not happen until when the FBI and the Dubai police have to arrest him after their investigation and then take him to the United States. So that's an opportunity we have lost. Because if there's a criminal like that among us, or a Nigerian that we are very much aware of, why can't we bring him to book? And I know that the United States FBI had been very, very helpful to the EFCC. So it would have been us, instead of the Dubai police, arresting Hush Puppy and sending him there.
Let me see if we can bring in Mr. Richard into this conversation also and ask him, over the years, a lot of people have said we have put this petition out to the EFCC. I understand that the EFCC does not exactly need, petitions, as it were, to swing into action. But, regarding that angle, when people say we have submitted this petition, or at least we have raised this concern, like Mr. Makri just said, and it seems as though the EFCC is not doing much about it. Is that an issue, or it's part of the operations of the EFCC?
Well, I think it's part of the national problem. By the law setting up the EFCC, if you have leakages to the tune of about 3 million, I think, the EFCC is supposed to investigate it. But today, if you take a case of 20, 30 million to the EFCC, you may just be wasting your time because they have myriad of cases of running into billions of naira to investigate. And why is this? That's because the primary agencies that ought to fight anti-corruption is a proactive activity. It's not reactive. The EFCC is a reactive agency. So is the police. So is the DSS. The real anti-corruption agencies are the SON, this procurement body, the Code of Conduct Bureau, the Public Complaints Commission, that ought to be at the front burner. But all of these are like they are comatose. So the EFCC is overwhelmed. Every day people come with this case, that, and they have to do triage. Triage will mean that they will have to look at the one that is hurting the country the most to investigate and to unravel. So, but that's not a pass mark on the part of the EFCC. And I think that the administration, and especially the committee advising the president, should do a lot much more work on how countries now battle corruption. Corruption is not fought reactively. Anti-corruption is proactive. For instance, there are some frameworks that should be in place that we don't even have yet. Number one is the framework that would make Nigerians be able to speak out and be protected. The Whistleblower Protection Act. We don't have one. We only have a policy. Number two is the service provider and the receiver framework, Servicom. We don't have one. We only have a policy. You can go on and on and on and on. The one that is even the most important and which countries, don't joke with at all is the standards, international and national standards that citizens and corporate citizens willingly abide by. The vote of
In quickly here to put in
national...
this one more question. I mean, you have talked about some of the issues inherent, but, talking about this investigation, perhaps something that is also important about this is transparency. And if I can just take the words of the Minister of State for Labour, saying that how can you expose corruption without cameras, in court, saying that this needs to be open to an extent, well, regarding that, his own case. So coming back to this investigation, how can we ensure transparency? I mean, pressmen were barred from that one, for example. So how do we know that this is really transparent?
Well, I think that it's just the beginning. This is just the beginning. If you back pressmen from the primary hearing, I'm sure that it's not just going to end today. The story will definitely come out one way or the other. But ensuring transparency would have meant that at least one or two media agencies would have been allowed into the place. But in the wisdom of government, I don't think it's that bad. Let's just watch and see what comes out of the investigation, the interrogation.
All right, then, Mr. Vier Richards, the Executive Director, Anti-Corruption Observatory, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Well, bringing it back here, the way all of this is playing itself out. Now, if pressmen don't have access to some of these things and then it's being carried on this way, then they come out and feed us certain kind of information, you'll always have questions as to what exactly happened. How transparent is this going to be? Why weren't you there in the process? Why were you prevented from coming right there in the process? But is this a mindset that security agencies have got and they will continue dealing with, do you think?
It's not a situation where you call pressmen to question the head of your anti-corruption agency.
No, not necessarily to question him.
Yeah.
About the entire process, letting them know what exactly is playing itself out.
They will know. Maybe it's not time for them to know, but they will know. Because when they don't
What's wrong with knowing from the start?
Yeah, no, because from the start, they've already produced or manufactured some false news that ran all over the place.
Because they didn't have information. Exactly. They thought it was DSS. They thought it was police.
Yes. So, let us leave it until they finish what they're doing.
Perhaps
then
the main problem,
yes.
Mr. Makri, perhaps the main problem is the process. Because the process in itself gave room for a lot of speculation and untruth.
Now, let me give you an example. This is Channels Television. If there is a case that they are going to investigate in-house, you are not going to call the press to come to it. Remember, this is still in-house.
We are not a public organization.
No, even if it is a public organization.
Yes.
This is still in-house, whereby,
No.
they are calling somebody
The point is the process
Yes.
of even bringing the man in the first place. No notice was given. He was just picked up from the road.
But the public was not called to come and see, like, we are going
It
to
was
pick up this
public.
guy.
It's our job to see anything in the public and report
But you
it.
didn't see it well, see? That's why Sahara reporters went and reported it wrongly. But please, listen, this is very important. Let the panel do their job. By the time they finish, definitely everybody will know the outcome.
Everyone is expecting the panel to do their job. But the
Yes.
problem that I'm trying to point out, please give us that information, give us that education. The man was, from what the very first question Chamberlain asked, the process of bringing the man in was in itself a little bit faulty. If the man had been invited and the man refused, then there could be an issue. But that's not the kind of thing that played out. He was going for a meeting, and then he was diverted from that meeting to another place. It's kind of suspicious. Wouldn't you say?
Suspicious.
Yes.
I don't think so.
He's a newsman, so
I
you
don't
can
think
understand
so.
that.
Yeah.
So
That, you know, see, we don't want. We've already talked about media. What do you call it? Media judgments. You know, that is not where we want to go, because when you start to call pressmen or invite him, and might like press to come, because we don't know the media people that actually saw him at that time. They were asking him to go to the panel, you know. So when you make it a media judgment or media trial, you know, it becomes very, very funny, because you start having people taking sides and everything. You know, let them look at him and then come up with a report.
We get your point, but the thing about it is that even if media men don't see him at that point where he was being diverted, look, Nigerians are out there. It's social media world these days. They will
Agreed.
see it, they will put it out there, and then the government will now start chasing that information, trying to correct it. So if in the event that somebody sees what's transpired, what's going on, and takes a picture, records it from a distance, and sends it out, nothing wrong in saying, well, actually, this is your
There's nothing
anti-corruption
wrong.
agency.
But let it
you're
be
talking about
correct.
here.
Let it be correct. Nothing wrong with reporting.
But
yeah.
what do you expect from this panel now? If over 20 items, you know, brought before this panel that he's got to answer to,
Yes.
that is not one, it's not two. This is a lot.
A lot,
And all
yes.
of those agencies, heads of those agencies that are there, it shows the gravity of what is going on now. And if he's supposed to report to a superior and he has a frosty relationship with that superior, from what may be in the press, rightly or wrongly, it does suggest as though, look, the end may be nigh for him.
Possibly.
But from your expertise, you think
Possibly.
that...
Because, you see, when police people bring a case to court, if it is 1 or 2 counts, lawyers can grapple with it. If they give 15 counts, you know, before you can get yourself out, it will take a long time, you know, because one will hook you, you know, whether you like it or not. So for 22 counts, I think he has a problem there.
But what do you make of this, looking at it from a completely different angle now? In 2015, when he was suggested to the National Assembly, they said no. Throughout that first term, it was no. And repeatedly, the president at the time kept trying to put him in, and the National Assembly kept rejecting. Now, the president has not presented his name, and this allegation comes on. How do you think this will rub off on the president?
Well, I don't know. Because, you see, when even the first time when he was presented and they said no, the president resubmitted him again, you know, and I was worried because the Senate is supposed to confirm people for you as the president. Now they are saying no, and then you are still representing him. So is there anything special about this guy that will make the president to keep on representing him? And after they rejected him the second time, you still let him go there in acting capacity for almost 5 years now. So I don't know. It is the president's prerogative to appoint or to fire anybody. But he might have impressed the president. I don't know.
But, you know, the fact that this also happened at the banquet hall, saying, look, this is not just any regular place. This is a banquet hall.
Yeah.
This is a serious matter we're looking into here.
Yes.
It suggests the president is aware of what's going on.
Of course he's aware.
And so, just as you say. But then, at the end of the day, yes, I know you say one may hook him. But in the event that none hooks him, would you see him? Would you think it's, carry on? All of that was a ruse.
If I was Magu and I go to this panel and they give me a clean bill that all the allegations were faulty and everything, and I come out, what I will do is to resign.
Wow, okay. We'll rest our case at that point. So perhaps if you guys can also tell us what you think of what's going on. Hey, tweet at us, we'll appreciate that. But well, thank you for coming on, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you for having me.
Former Deputy Director with the SSS. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Don't forget, you can go ahead and let us know what your thoughts are, not just about what we're talking about the poll, yes, about what's playing out, what your impression is of all of this scenario as it is happening with the anti-corruption. But look at that poll. Don't forget that, because we are about to bring the results to you any moment.
I'm itching to take comments, actually.
Oh, really?
Some of the
well, there are a
comments.
lot of comments now. So, wow, so many people are going on with these votes now. So, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, especially because people are not just voting, they're giving us reasons why they think their choice is the right choice, or at least that's what they think the authorities should do. Like I said, I'm itching to read some of these comments, but we'll get to that. The poll is closing in a couple of minutes, actually about 7 minutes to go, and almost 7,000 people have voted. So let's hear what you think about that, because this will be very important in this next phase of safe reopening of schools. Oyo State did that yesterday. Lagos is gearing up. Some other states are saying it is not time. Edo, Akwa Ibom are saying, well, we'll slow down on that. So let's know what you think about schools reopening for now.
Okay, well, don't forget, we brought you some reports from residents in Ekiti, in Bauchi, in Lagos. But take a look at this one from Oyo State.
Students in graduating classes across public and private schools in Oyo State resuming at school several months after they went on compulsory break owing to the outbreak of COVID-19. In some of the public primary and secondary schools visited, they confirmed with the social distancing protocol right from the assembly ground, even as the cleaning of the school environment commences. Students in primary 6, JSS 3 and SS 3 were seen moving their desks and chairs to other classes as a way of spacing out in line with social distancing stipulations of the NCDC.
Because we have a big class for now, because we have been asked to, put them in staggered form, zigzag form. That was what we have done this morning. And about 15 of them, because we have 47 in SS3, so we are divided into 3, so that there will be, well-ventilated classrooms.
However, some of the students are already flouting the continuous use of face masks while in class.
You follow the same definition.
Head teachers and proprietors appear committed to ensuring all precautions are taken to avoid the spread of COVID-19 infection in the state.
Automatic pedaling for the washing of hands and sanitizing the hands, and we have the infrared temperature measurement to measure the temperature of the children. We also have the space distancing, the social distancing in our classes and among our teachers.
State exams have been scheduled to begin with immediate effect for pupils in public schools across the state, while a monitoring committee has been put in place to ensure the compliance to NCDC guidelines are sustained.
Okay, so some scenarios in that report. Well, we have Professor Sunday Okachuku, who is the Vice Chancellor of Wesley University. He joins us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us today. Could you give us give us a picture? What is going on? What's the thinking now, not just for you, but for the management about reopening schools as the government has directed?
Good morning. My thinking and the thinking of the management is that the universities, especially private universities, are ready. However, everything is subject to the regulation by the federal government and the directives by the federal government. Since one cannot do anything unless there is that directive and unless the regulatory body, which is the federal government now, says go ahead.
Okay, well, have you gotten any further directive apart from saying, look, internalize or prepare for reopening?
Tomorrow, or rather on Thursday, there will be a meeting of the vice chancellors with the Minister of Education. I do believe that such thing will be discussed during the meeting.
Okay, so, all right, you know what, Prof, just give us a moment. We'll be back and take a look at some of the plans that your management, the school, is putting in place for those who may want to resume and perhaps for parents, of course. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's get back to Professor Sunday Okachuku, the Vice Chancellor of Wesley University. He was talking about their plans. So, Prof, could you go ahead and tell us, so what measures are the authorities putting in place to ensure that parents will feel safe and comfortable to let their students back to school?
Yeah, the arrangements we are putting in place, one is to make sure, of course, this is post-COVID-19, and we know that life may not be as it was before COVID-19. Even if it will normalize, it may take some time. So we have to, we have had to challenge our IT team, and they have developed LMS for learning so that one can take his lecture from any part of the campus or even from home, so that there won't be crowding in the classroom, even though we don't have challenge of a classroom. Again, we have put together a committee that has come up on a committee of health professionals that have come up with things that we'll be doing as students are coming back. And, you know, coming back of students means also coming back of staff, so that everybody will be safe. So they have come up with it. And like I did say earlier, we are waiting as soon as it is, there are things we cannot start implementing now, but there are also things that we just have to start doing. So as the date approaches, we will start some things, but even at now, we make sure that there is social distancing for those who are coming to work, and that will be the same with students. We put in places sanitary health materials that will help people with sanitary conditions, so that hygienic, so that they will maintain hygiene and not either contract or transfer to any other person. The hostels, we are keeping safe to make sure that everywhere is safe. We are cleaning the environment, and
wait.
Also,
are you, is it, let me ask, is it the thinking that, or is the thought such that the school is thinking about having some students in class while some of the others can join online?
That's exactly what I mean when I said we have developed our LMS. And our LMS, that's the learning management system, is a unique one because we also teach deaf and hard of hearing students. So we make it in a way that both the students and the staff will be effectively engaged, and our deaf and hard of hearing students will not lose out. That's why we had to work hard to make it a homegrown LMS so that it will serve all these purposes. So the sense in it is that people who one can come to class, unless it is a practical class, but otherwise, people can also take lectures from the library, from their rooms, from the lab, from the classroom. So that is exactly what I mean, and that's what I said.
I don't know if the LMS also factored in the concentration or the attention span of the students. You know that getting their attention while in class is some work on its own. Joining virtually, how do we ensure that the LMS is not only just fulfilling all righteousness of giving academic information to the students, but also ensuring that it is impactful? How are you going to manage the attention span of the students virtually?
course, while that lasts, while the lecture is on, assignments will be given and it will be timed, and anyone that doesn't turn in his own within the time loses out. So with all that, you engage the students. That's why I said effective engagement. There'll be document sharing on the LMS, and there'll be tests, on-the-spot tests, not tests you go home and come back and submit. So, and all these will be timed. With this, the students will be fully engaged and the staff will be fully engaged. There will be full interaction.
Well, we are happy with the kind of reception that we're getting from you now, Lagos and Ondo State, but I'm not sure if that's the kind of network service, internet service you have now pervades the entire space in Ondo State. Have you also factored that in?
We, as far as our school is concerned, we have a mast in the school, and both MTN and Glo are very strong. They are the network of MTN and Glo are very strong. So I don't think you are having any disruption as you are talking with me. That's an indication that we have strong internet that can support what we are doing.
Okay, I mean, we don't want that internet to fail, so it won't, cast a shadow of doubt on what you just said. But, that aside, there's been a lot of debate about whether or not now is the time to open schools. In fact, there's a poll which should have closed already on our Twitter handle where we asked people whether they think it's safe to reopen schools right now. But just, to step back a bit, why do you think it's important to actually open the schools at this moment?
Why I think it's important is this, that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And you know what our youths can do. As they remain at home and remain idle, they can begin to hatch evils. And we're already tired and bugged by the wave of crimes that is in the society. So if we leave them at home to while away time, to have an opportunity of getting engaged in crimes, it may develop into something else that we may not be able to manage.
So you think now is the time, regardless of the figures, the COVID-19 figures, which some people say we'll still have a second wave anyway, and in fact there are talks of maybe a lockdown in the coming weeks. So in spite of that, you think, yes, schools should reopen?
Remember I said earlier, I talked of regulations earlier and directive. The NCDC has may have the final say as they advise the government of what is happening. And again, we should not forget that the youths are not very vulnerable to COVID-19. Most of them survive it. It is the aged that are vulnerable to it. So I'm not saying it's a must that we open now, but I'm just giving reasons why it is necessary that we consider reopening now. Because what may come out of it, like I did say, in terms of crimes, may be a big challenge that will be even worse than the COVID-19 itself.
Even though the NCDC's data indicates that those between the ages of 20 and 40 are the ones who are spreading some of these things. But we do thank you for your time this morning, Professor Sunday Ukachukwu, the Vice Chancellor of Wesley University. Thank you, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you go. We're hoping that they'll be able to observe and enforce social distancing while they do get back to school. So now, guys, let's talk now about something else. The airlines. Whoa, wait a minute. Tomorrow will be the big day. Yeah. The airlines are supposed to get back tomorrow.
There's been a lot of rehearsals. And there are some preparations going on towards that one right now. So we just wait to see what's going to happen. So we'll go to take on that action. I think you should just introduce the guest, gentlemen.
Okay, so we'll have him joining us from our studios in Abuja. So we might as well just go ahead. Hey, good morning, and thank you for coming on today. Well, for NAPE, one wonders, look, we know that they have said they needed a little bit of time to ensure that the airlines are put in proper shape and things go well. From your perspective, do you think that all is well for this one, Mr. Isaac?
Yeah, well, by the grace of God, I think all is well. From the Aviation Ministry, led by the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, down to the DG of the Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, the MD of FAN, Captain Yadudu, the MD of the Nigerian Airspace Management Authority, Captain Fola Akinkotu, and other key stakeholders in the industry, including the airlines themselves. Of course, first of all, to take away the fears of passengers, definitely, first of all, the continuing airworthiness of the aircraft itself is the responsibility of the airline owners, strictly adhered to by the NCAA regulation, the guidelines, the maintenance procedure. But when it comes to the COVID-19, I think demonstration has been carried out, and it's obvious that the minister made it clear that we are about 95% ready as at few days or few weeks ago. The good thing also is, I think we all know what we need to do. As far as COVID is concerned, everybody around the world is aware of the precautions that need to be put in place. As far as our airports are actually concerned, when you talk about the social distancing, when you talk about the checks at the entrance of the airport, the fact that the airlines have tried to see how they can disinfect all the aircraft, the airport terminal by the FAAN, that's FAN. I think a lot have been done, and passengers themselves, you know, there have been a lot of awareness by the NCDC in the last few months, and I think we just need to go back to work. I mean, we cannot just sit down at home and keep complaining. I think the damage is already there. Yes, of course, safety first, but we just need to go back and see how we can get the country running again.
Sometimes when we talk about safety, security at the airport, especially safety at the airport, we talk a lot more about the passengers. We do not always talk about those who manage the flights. How is that going to be managed? What kind of rehearsal, if any, was done to ensure that the people who work to ensure that the airlines, aircraft, the air flights are also safe? What kind of preparations have been made for them as well? Are they also going to be 100% at the office, or they have reduced the number of people to go to the office?
Of course, there's a drastic reduction in the people that goes to the office. For the civil servant, I think it's clear that level 14 upward is mostly senior civil servant. For the private sector, that is for the airlines now, is also the same thing. It's even more, I mean, there's even more caution as far as I am concerned, because nobody wants to contaminate his or her facility. The truth of the matter is that, yeah, our members, well, I am the former NAPE president, so, but of course I am still a member. Not just pilot, aircraft engineers, the air hostesses, you know, also the baggage handlers, the flight dispatchers, and what have you, and other support staffs in the aviation industry, you know, the ground support staff as well. I think in the last conference calls that we've been having with the Aviation Ministry, with NCAA, it's obvious that all stakeholders, you know, have agreed to comply, and I think they have already complied. Even in the office, all this safety culture has to be strictly adhered to. There's no any airline I am aware of, or any ground handling company that has not gone through this COVID-19 training. It's online, and some have done their own in their training school, because most airlines actually have a training school in the airport. And all that training for the captains, for the co-pilots, for the air hostess, for the engineers, for the flight dispatch, for the baggage handlers, for the ticketing officers, and what have you, everybody has gone through that. And I think that was part of the requirement that NCAA, set forth. And I'm happy to say that we are good to go. So there's no cause for any alarm. I think if you want to fly, just get ready and get your ticket.
That reminds me of when you get out of the aircraft. Well, so far, the information we have is that the number of passengers on any aircraft is not going to be reduced. Consequently, there could be that crowding when you want to get your luggage. What happens?
No, you see, I mean, people have been going to the banks, for God's sake. When you go to the bank, that we have a lot of people doesn't mean that you all choke up to have access to the bank. You have to queue. Most of the banks have even provided place to stand, with proper 1.5 meters, 2 meters distancing and what have you. I think the airport, in the last demonstration by the Minister of Aviation himself, it is obvious, it is clear that all these things have been put in place, that you have even 2 aircraft landing at the same time does not mean that everybody will just go to the conveyor belt to go and get his or her bag or her luggages. We need to queue, we need to observe social distancing, we need to ensure that our face masks are on all the time. We need to also ensure that even when you use the restroom and whatever, so all those precautions are there. And I think NCDC has done a great job, and I think Nigerians, this 3 months has been hell for everybody, so it's a collective responsibility, not just by the airline owners or by the aviation industry itself, but everybody, passengers, everybody has to put hand on deck to ensure that we make this happen. So it's just to adhere strictly to the rules, it's just to queue up, it's just to behave in a civilized manner. I think Nigerians are civilized people.
Any message, did you get any? Did NAPE members get any message whatsoever from, say, the Ministry of Aviation that everyone must subject themselves to COVID-19 tests before they are certified fit to resume work?
Well, personally, I just left Lagos, so the headquarters of NAPE is in Lagos. I've not read that. I've not catch up with because I've been busy on transit in the last few days. But the point is that everybody actually knows that. Everybody is already doing it, because you don't even want to go and contaminate your own family. So that you're going out or you're going in, you have to look after yourself. These are things that are basic. It's not we don't have to even wait for the minister to even tell us. People are doing these things on their own. I did mine. Everybody is doing his own. So we have to be very, very careful. And I think there's no any issue with that.
Don't you think that it shouldn't be left, the whims and caprice of people, because everyone don't think alike? In order for the ministry to demonstrate that seriousness to passengers and give them that confidence to fly, they should have mandated everyone in that sector to go for that test so that they can lead the way and ensure that confidence gets to the people that, look, we have done this test. At the moment, we are free.
Well, like I told you, I know that most pilots and engineers that I know of have done the test. The airline, what I don't know is, I don't know if that instruction came from the Ministry of Aviation or the NCAA, but that is being done already.
Doing it, but on a final note, air travel is meant to be fast. A lot of people go there because of the speed and convenience and what have you. But with the new guidelines, you need to be at the airport hours before your flight, and then trying to get your baggage also. It will take quite some time. So what's the average time frame that we're looking at now when it comes to traveling?
Well, of course, it has doubled. I think even before now, you will agree with me that if you buy your ticket, they said, please try and be in the airport 1 to 2 hours before your flight. So now it's 2 to 3 hours. So there's an increase of about 1 hour, just to ensure that there's no rush, there's no pressure on people, running late, because you have to check in your luggages, you have to check your temperature, you have to disinfect your hands and what have you. So there are so many processes that has now come up. And that little increase in time, I think for our safety is actually worth it. It's just to be patient, If you're traveling, let's say by 12 o'clock, yeah, by 9, 10 o'clock, you should be in the airport early enough. Not like before, Nigerians, we love this rush of a thing. You see somebody coming to the airport 40 minutes before his or her flight when they have already closed the manifest has been submitted to the captain, because it takes time to even process your luggage, and to put it on the aircraft. So all these processes, there's no room for that anymore. So the best thing is you come to the airport on time so that you can be rest assured that you don't miss your flight.
Well, we also hope that the airlines will also not delay any flights anymore, because some cases you spend 4 hours waiting for your flight and they tell you, oh, it's unavoidable, some logistics matter. We hope that will become history as well.
Well, you see, one thing about this mission no any airline, and I tell you this, no any airline will deliberately want to delay flight for 3
It's
4,
the same
5
thing.
hours.
No passenger wants to deliberately go late and miss their flight. No passenger wants to deliberately miss their flight.
Yeah, true, of course. So there must be a balance.
All right.
The airlines, of course, they've always been doing our best. It's not easy to operate in this country, trust me. You know what I mean?
All right.
To operate a flight in Nigeria is tough. It's not easy. A lot of forces against you.
All right, then. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Isaac Balami is the former president of NAFI. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed. We'll keep those responses coming through about the cases we just handled as if we're caught. It's a topic to discuss today. Well, there you go. But now take a look at the poll question we'll put out for you is that, do you think it's safe to reopen schools? So we did ask you to go out there and vote. And there you go. That is the verdict. 61% of 6,819 people say no, it's not safe to open the schools. 30% of them think yes, it is safe to reopen the schools. And 9% were indifferent about the entire scenario. But they have some interesting comments as well.
Oh, absolutely. You see this one, Dad Matilda, saying resumption to schools is a no, capital N-O. And Mercy Bauer says schools should reopen perhaps in different categories, higher institutions first, and then we take it from there. So it's important that people are suggesting ways to go about this. Some people are saying, well, yes, let's do it, but this way. Some are saying no, outrightly, this is how we should do it. And obviously, some other people are saying they're indifferent. By the way, I voted. I was a part of this. Well, I'm not going to tell you what I voted for.
Well, this is interesting one, very interesting. By Joseph Darulwa says, safe care. Safe. Safe, Bawo. It will further expose innocent school children. Well, what this says to me really is, if we are looking for empirical data, this is one definitely, both from students and from parents and guardians. And well, as government has said, they just don't want us to just admit. That's fine. But then, one of the comments actually asked, where are they exiting to?
Big question, right there.
Well, if you have to go to university and graduate, don't know why not to graduate anymore? Come on.
So maybe the question that would be, where are they graduating to?
Come on. If they want to graduate and get themselves, we might not be stuck in between. But there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for your comments. And yeah, don't let it doesn't have to end there. You could always engage us online. We'd love to see that. Well, thank you for watching the show. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a good day and please do stay safe.
Yes, please be responsible out there. I think we can always gauge what the outcome will eventually be with the experiments we're currently doing with the those who are graduating currently back in school. Let's see what the outcome is. If it's safe enough, why not? Maybe schools will eventually reopen, but let's see how it goes. Thank you for watching. I'm Mal Kweogun Yusuf.
Thank you.